If you're looking for West Ham news, this is not the video for you. I would strongly argue this is not the channel for you. I am proudly an NITK. I discuss yesterday's news. But today's video is 100% opinion based. There's some factual things in here regarding what Graham Potter has said. But it's my thoughts on West Ham's transfer strategy ahead of the summer transfer window, if you like. Now, I've got a question here from Lewis, which is from Patreon. This isn't a promotion for Patreon because I need to promote these jumpers instead. But Lewis has asked, do you think we might be a little short-sighted by releasing players like Cresswell, Fabianski and Coufal with such an important window ahead of us? Granted, all of them have seen better days, but I'd argue all are more than capable of being squad players. It seems like we may be having a massive clear out this summer, and the sheer amount of players that we may need to bring in is stressing him out. I can't help but think we will most likely have a paper-thin squad next season and wonder if we should have held on to a few players for one more season, especially if 3 or 4 youngsters are not incorporated into the first team. P.S. Sorry for the bloody long question. Well, the question was quite short, Lewis. It was your comment that was quite long. But I like it. I like reading people's thoughts on West Ham. I like hearing people's opinions. And I like that opinion too. So do I think we've made a mistake? Not necessarily. Would I have released all 3? No. But it doesn't mean it's an error. The reality is we will only know if it's a mistake in 12 months' time. Once next season has played out, we'll be able to say whether it's the right thing or not, getting rid of Fabianski, Coufal and Cresswell. Maybe we've made 1 mistake. Maybe we've made 2. We might have got all 3 right, might have got all 3 wrong. We won't know until we've got the benefit of hindsight. For myself, I think it's the right thing to do, letting Coufal go. I think he's had a couple of good performances at the end of the season, but I do think he struggled for the majority of the season. But not just under Potter, he struggled under Lopetegui. And not just under those two, I feel like he struggled at the end of David Moyes' tenure as well. So I think it was the right thing to do to let him go. With Fabianski, I would have retained him for the season, but purely because I want to upgrade the goalkeeping position. I would have kept Fabianski and sold Areola to fund us spending 15-20 million on a goalkeeper. Now, there is, of course, a possibility that we replace Fabianski with a goalkeeper where we spend a substantial amount of money on that. I just don't see it. I just don't believe it. I can't see a world where we bring in, and I'm refraining from saying any names because I don't want to get into a debate of whether that goalkeeper is good enough or not for West Ham. But we were to go spend 15 million on a keeper. I just don't see us. That new guy and Areola, I'd like it. I'm not convinced. I think we will see a cheap/free keeper coming in to replace Fabianski. So that's why I would have kept Fabianski, just to generate some funds by selling Areola. For Cresswell, I would have kept him for another year because I think he's doing it in the Premier League this season under Potter, and when we've seen him under Lopetegui and Moyes before that. I feel like he's still proving he's got what it takes at this level. Now, I certainly wouldn't be building my team around him, but I do think for character, for leadership, for longevity, for helping the new players settle into the club, I think Cresswell would have had a part to play. And I know people say, well, that's an expensive cheerleader, but I think he'd have a part to play on the pitch when called upon. The aim would be that we just don't need him much next season, but if we did, we know he's capable of doing a job. So that's my thoughts on those individually to answer Lewis's question. But I do think it's a ruthless decision from West Ham. Now, I'm basing this on the assumption that we've decided not to renew those contracts. There is a possibility, and there has been some whispers that we've offered Cresswell in particular a new deal, but he rejected it. However, I'm not 100% sure I believe that. I think we've made the call to let those 3, plus Danny Ings and Kurt Zouma, go at the end of their contract. And I think that's a big decision. I think it's a tough decision as well. I think it's easy to make a call on Zouma and Ings. Easy. But I think for the other 3, it's maybe a bit harder because they have had a role. They are likeable people and big characters in that dressing room. So I do think it's a tough call. But in a weird way, it gives me a little bit of hope. Because there's been all this talk that we've got no money to spend, and I've never believed it. I don't think we've got hundreds of millions to spend. I think we've got tens of millions, 40, 50, 60 million, something like that. I don't know. Before sales, I think we've got some money. But I'm just unconvinced that you release those players knowing that there's literally no money to spend in the summer like what's being claimed. So it gives me a little bit of hope that there's something there. Graham Potter has spoken to Jamie Carragher before the game against Nottingham Forest at the weekend. And he's spoken about... Sometimes the headline can make me worry a little bit. The headline was, we need adjustments, not changes, or something like that, suggesting that the rebuild wasn't that big and there wasn't a lot to do. But when you actually listen to what he said, he's saying the opposite, because he's basically said we've made some tough decisions on players, that there's going to be some players are going to have to be sold so that we can build a squad more aligned to how we want to play football. I apologise for that noise outside. I've got the window open because I'm warm, because I'm having to wear this jumper so I can promote it. So I might as well do it now because I'm in the bad books. Now, I am looking forward to one subscriber in particular commenting regarding jumpers at Hammers Chat, and if he doesn't, I'm going to be a bit sad. But we had these on sale before Christmas. There's this one, and then there's a jumper with a quarter zip that comes down to about here. It's the exact same, burgundy with the cross hammers. We sold out very quickly. A few people have said, are you getting it back in? We are closing down the online store soon. It will run until the Oddballs boxers arrive. Once they arrive and we distribute them and we sell them, that's when we're going to shut the online store down for maybe about 12 months. There's various different reasons as to why we are doing it. But what we decided to do was get one last order of these jumpers in. They've arrived today, and this is why I'm in the bad books, because I've now got 3 boxes of these jumpers sat downstairs. So if you want one, go get one. It's hammerschatstore.com. Links in description and pinned comments. Only go get one if you want one. Don't feel obliged to get one. We will sell them out. We haven't got loads in terms of quantity because we can't afford it. They're expensive to buy in. They're not cheap because they're a good garment. They're good quality. But yeah, so if you want one of these jumpers, they're back in stock until they sell out. If you order them now, it'll take me about a week or so to get through them because there's people have pre-ordered them already and they take priority. So anyway, jumpers, hammerschatstore.com. What was I saying before someone made noise outside? I can't remember now. But anyway, let's just start again. Potter, we need adjustments, not wholesale changes. But that's encouraging because of what he said about how we're going to have to bring in players. Some players are unhappy with the minutes. I take this as a good thing. I take it as there's a rebuild on our hands here. Now, what Lewis is suggesting is the size of the job. And this is where I have a bit of a frustration with West Ham. And I hope we change our transfer strategy this summer. But I don't believe it. And I want to go back to a tweet which came from Sean Whetstone, who essentially is the messenger. He's getting information from the club and he puts it out there, right? He's just passing things on. But there's an inaccuracy in here and it really frustrates me. It concerns me that this is coming from someone at the club and not from Sean. If Sean is just the messenger, I mean, someone at West Ham is telling Sean that something that is not accurate, and that's a worry. But I think there's maybe just been a bit of a type of an error here. But in Sean's tweet here regarding money and just warning fans again for about the 5th time that we're not going to have any money to spend, it's the 3rd paragraph here. The summer transfer window opens on the 1st of June this year, which is correct, on the first day of West Ham's new financial year, which is correct when it comes to the actual accounts. So any dealings count within next season's figure. That's incorrect. Because what he's referring to here is a PSR and the ability to spend. Incorrect. That is factually wrong. The new PSR period starts on the 1st of July, not June. And this is where you can call out bullshit from the club. Because we apparently bid for John Duran in January. Now, I don't believe it, okay? I've made that clear in January, but let's go along with it hypothetically. Well, actually, to some extent, I think we might have bid the 55 million, but we just knew there was no chance it was going to get accepted. There's a big difference between bidding for someone with intention of actually following through and bidding for the sake of it, right? I bid on one of my friend's eBay accounts to get the price up a little bit. I have no intention of actually buying the item. We've all been there and done that, I think. But in January, it was claimed by West Ham and by others who speak to people at the club, which is, oh no, that bid was genuine. And it came out between March and April. Now, maybe I've dreamt this and I'm going mad because I've tried to find the tweet and I can't find it. So I don't know if it's been deleted or I've dreamt it. It's one of the two. But there was a tweet Bumshaw, which said, oh, that in January we had money to spend, but we're now in a different accounting period. And that's where I felt like I had my silver bullet, if you like. Well, that's factually incorrect. We're still in the same PSR accounting period. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is where, if we do have the ability to spend in January, it means we've still got the ability to spend in June. And I wish we were a little bit savvier. Because there's clubs that need to sell, and there's clubs that want to buy, and there's clubs that want to do nothing. And at the minute, I think we're in the middle. Newcastle United are a club looking to buy before the 30th of June. They haven't bought anyone in 3 transfer windows. They've got money, they've got ability, they can take advantage of clubs that must sell. Aston Villa, we know, is one club that has to sell before the 30th of June. Despite selling Diaby and Duran and Philogene, they've sold a lot of players in the last 12 months in this accounting period, but they still need to sell. Their turnover to wage ratio is something like 96, 97%. 6% of the money they take in goes on wages. It's ridiculous. But in January, they added Marcus Rashford, Asensio, they bought Malin, Disasi from Chelsea, and Garcia. There was a fifth one, I think it was Garcia, they brought in January. So they're now in a position where they need to sell someone before the 30th of June. How much they need to raise, I don't know, and it depends on which player they sell. But there's a lot of talk that they might do a deal with Newcastle where Newcastle sign Ramsey and Villa sign Harvey Barnes, and it will end up being cash flow wise, there might be something that maybe Newcastle pay a bit more for Barnes, but because of PSR and the way PSR works, both teams are fine. Villa's fine, they move into the next year. I just wish we were one of those clubs, able and more importantly willing to take advantage of clubs that need to sell. Because if Aston Villa do need to sell, they've got some players there that they might deem surplus to requirements but would be good enough for West Ham. Not all of them. I think Leon Bailey would be a prime example of someone that could be sold, but I wouldn't want him at West Ham per se. But it just frustrates me that we're not there ready to pounce, because according to people that speak to people at the club, that bid for Duran in January was legit. And if it was, it means we can spend money now. Don't necessarily believe it, however, but we'll see. And the other one I want to see us do more of or do better of in this summer is taking advantage of the loan market. We didn't do a good job of it last year, or this season, sorry. Ferguson was a bad chance. I was happy with signing Ferguson at the time. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't. I was delighted with the signing of Ferguson on loan because I assumed Graham Potter would utilise him. There was a lot of evidence to suggest he would, given their history at Brighton. So I found myself a bit surprised at how little he's been used. It turned out to be a bad transfer. I was happy with it at the time because I thought we needed a striker for cover, for competition, for Fulkrug. And in the end, we've got neither. He just sat on the bench, really. But Carlos Soler was also on loan. He was an all right player. I think he's looked like a good player at times. I just don't feel like we've seen the best of him. I'm not sure. We've literally got one game left this season. I'm still not sure what Soler's best position is. I think I know what it is, which is in that central midfield area. I certainly don't like him as a left winger under Lopetegui, but I think centrally and deeper in midfield, like when he came off the bench at the weekend against Nottingham Forest, I thought he had a good game. But it's few and far between. Few and far between. So we've not really taken advantage of it. And I think there's going to be quite a few good players available on loan from big clubs this summer. Chelsea are supposedly having a clear out, and Cole Palmer plus one other player is unsellable. I assume it's Caicedo. It should be Caicedo, but there's 2 players apparently untouchable and the rest are there. Anyone want to buy any of these players? It presents opportunity, not just to buy, but also on loan, because they have such a big squad. And I want to see us attack that market this summer. And speaking of a big squad, what Potter has said to Carragher, which is we've got 25, 26 senior players and want to trim the numbers a little bit. I'm not against that. I'm not against it. I think we do have a big squad. And for those that would suggest we don't, factually, our senior strikers coming in the season were Ferguson, Antonio, Ings and Fulkrug. We don't need them. We don't need 4. And I appreciate we've got Ferguson because of the situation with Antonio. 3, I'm not even sure we need 3 senior ones when we don't have European football. We certainly need 2. But I guess this is the problem. You're going to have Fulkrug, then you're probably going to need a third one. So I get what you're saying. I do think the squad is big at West Ham. You know, you look at the squad against Nottingham Forest, we literally had Ings not in the squad, Scars wasn't in the squad, Irving wasn't in the squad, Somerville's obviously injured. There's a lot of senior players not even making the bench. So I get why he wants to reduce the numbers a little bit, because he hinted that there was people unhappy with their amount of game time under Potter. Perfectly understandable. And then that's where I'm looking at the ones going out the door. Fabianski needs replaced. Coufal needs replaced. We've got Ings and Ferguson leaving. That needs replaced. You only need one. I think replace both with one, you'll be okay. You've got Solar leaving. He needs replaced. I haven't included Cresswell because I think maybe Ollie Scarles and Agard numerically is the replacement for Aaron Cresswell. I'm okay with that one. But we are already sort of under a little bit of pressure to bring in signings before we even start selling players. And it's a big summer transfer window. This is the one I've worried about the most for quite some time now. I'd feel comfortable right now if I was confident in either A, the club producing a strong transfer window, or B, Graham Potter being able to work with whatever he has next season. If I was confident in one of them, so that we'd bring in good players, we'd have a good squad, we might not have the best manager, but the squad's that good, we should be all right. Or, to flip it, we don't necessarily have the best window, but the manager's that good, we'll be all right. But I'm not confident in either. I'm worried about the window and I'm worried about Graham Potter. But I do think that this presents an opportunity for us to almost go about things perhaps in a different ways to how we go about it. We're being linked to a lot of different players at the minute, and players I've never heard of from the Belgian league, the Danish league, the Swiss league. I'm not against it. If anything, I quite like it. It's a different level of adventure. But I would like us to attack the transfer market domestically as well. And I think there's opportunities with some teams that need to sell. And I think the loan market in the Premier League, there's going to be players available. Who? Well, I don't know. I don't speak to football agents or anything like that. But there will be some. You know, for example, just chuck an example out there. Harvey Elliott has spoken about his future and basically suggested he's going to leave Liverpool this summer. I think he's a fantastic player. Is he the right player? Maybe not. But could you get him on loan? Don't think it's worth an ask, really. I think he'd be a fantastic signing. And one that if he worked out in the year, then hopefully we've got an option to buy on him. Then you can sign him because you know he'd fit in with where or how Graham Potter wishes to play. So it's a big summer. I'm a bit concerned. And I'm not concerned about replacing the players individually that have left. Like replacing Coufal, I'm not worried. I think he'll be an easy enough player to replace. It's the ability to replace him that concerns me a little bit. You know, if we went and got, say, Kyle Walker-Peters as an obvious example, I'd be happy with that. Done. If we were to go get a keeper of similar ability to Fabianski, it didn't cost much, great. I still think Areola needs upgraded, but that's a different conversation altogether. So there's a lot of work to be done. And I think we've got to have new ways going about it. I'm just a bit frustrated that we're not one of those teams like Newcastle United ready to pounce on clubs that need to sell before the 30th of June, because that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for someone. But I have to admit, when I can put my Potter specs to one side and listen to what he's saying about recruitment, it gives me a lot of encouragement, because I go back to an article in The Athletic. We covered it, myself and Frankie covered it a couple of weeks ago. And there was that line from Graham Potter, if you can't change people, change people. I thought, brilliant, this is what I want, because I want evidence that we are going to be up for a big rebuild. He keeps suggesting there's not a big rebuild on our hands, but I think he knows there is. And I want to see one. I want to see a new midfield at West Ham next season. That's the number one thing I want to see the most. So I am scraping a barrel. I am clinging on to things that give me hope that that's going to happen. And most of the stuff he said in the last month regarding the transfers suggests to me that it could happen, or it should happen, or it will. He plays down the magnitude of the job, but he certainly speaks up the fact that there's going to be changes at West Ham. And that gives me hope, because I think what we've seen, letting Coufal, Cresswell, Fabianski goal. I think it's kind of ruthless. It's not a bad thing. Ruthless isn't always bad. I do think it's ruthless. It's decisive. And if you're going to do that with players who've been good servants for the club and relatively low-cost wages, then you're definitely going to do it with players who you don't want. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to, because I'll be guessing. But let's just say there was a midfielder at West Ham that Potter did not want. If he's prepared to bin off Cresswell, Coufal and Fabianski, he will be prepared to bin off that central midfielder. He will be prepared to bin off the striker, the left back, the right back, whoever it is. He is showing he's ruthless when it comes to the transfer window. That gives me hope. And I am unashamedly clinging to it because I need some hope. Anyway, that's my thoughts on West Ham's transfer. We will be doing, or I will be doing, a transfer rumour show later on in the week because there's quite a few players being linked to. And then post Ipswich, what we'll be doing is, I keep saying what I will be doing is sort of who I'd like to see leave, which positions I think we need to spend on, and which players I'd like to see come in for those positions. Although my knowledge of football isn't that great, so it will be a limited series, short videos. I could upload them as YouTube shorts probably. Anyway, I'm off. If you want a jumper, you know where to find them, hammerchatstore.com. If you've enjoyed this video, it's a bit of a ramble, to steal Nick's phrase, but I enjoy a chit chat sometimes. But thanks to Lewis for his questions. Get involved in the comments below. Look forward to catching up with you all, see what you're all saying. Anyway, before you go, you know the score. Drop a like, comment by clicking thumbs up, subscribe to Ham's Chat. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.